All right, guys. Welcome back to the show. Once again, here it's me and Misty. But before we get started, I just want to say that if you enjoy the show, if you're listening to it, you like it, and you learn something, and we help you out a little bit, shoot us a rating. Give us a 5 star. Something to on whatever platform you listen to, and share it with your friends. So, but let's start it out today. So we are talking about reviewing deals. So this is something that and when I say reviewing deals, obviously, if you're just getting started, this is a way that, we review deals. And there's no wrong way to review a deal, I would say. It depends on how you're looking at it. But I wanted to go through that process, or we wanted to go through that process, because if you're just getting started, you're a little unsure on different ways to review. And most people think it's got to be like this, but that's not necessarily the case. So let's kick it off. So initially, you've got to think about what's your goal, right? Equity or cash flow. So, are you wanting more equity, or are you wanting more cash flow? That's the stuff you've got to figure out is what is your end goal as far as that. So kind of go through that, Misty, like talk about our own personal strategy and what we look for.
We are more equity investors as opposed to cash flow. Of course, we like our deals to cash flow, but
Right.
some we're in part of some investor groups on Facebook and stuff, and I see some investors post, I don't touch a deal unless it cash flows at least $600 a
Hmm.
month. And I'm like, man, if we did that, we would have no property.
Have nothing. Some of them eventually do at some
Yeah.
point, but yeah, we'd have nothing.
Yeah, but in the beginning, I mean, the longer you own it, the more it's going to cash flow. But in the beginning, we've never had one cash flow $600 off the bat.
Right.
It takes some time to get there. And so I was like, man, if we had that thought process, we would not be investing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think too, a lot of it was time.
Mhm.
We started out in our 20s, so because of that.
It's also our location, because like if you're up north or something, like some places in Michigan or whatever, the homes don't create as much equity, and so what they buy them at is what they're worth still 10 years later,
Mhm.
and so they cash flow better, but they're not building equity.
Right. Yeah.
And ours build a lot of equity, and so they don't cash flow as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of a trade-off, but
And then I mean, you have something like California's a lot of equity. It's not
mhm.
going to really necessarily be maybe your cash flowing cow, but I think Texas has a good mix.
Yeah, you can do both.
I think you can do both. Obviously, depends on what you buy it for and what your strategy is,
Mhm.
right? If you're, paying it off, or if you're going to put a note on it, or, all those
Whether
things.
you buy it on market or off market.
Yeah. Yeah. Those things. And then sometimes you can always buy it on market and still find a deal.
Yeah,
We've found
ca-
numerous deals on
that
market.
cash flow and have
But
equity,
yeah,
but they're fewer and far between, but
but
they're
yeah,
there.
they take less work per se whenever you're looking on market. If that's not your yeah, that's another thing too. Like if that's not your full time gig, and you're not like, hey, I'm a full time investor, I'm looking,
Yeah.
then you might not on the market's just fine. You can do what you need to get done. You'll be obviously a little. I think you'll be patient on either end, anyways. Whether it's on or off market, you still got
Hmm.
to be patient because it ain't gonna turn. It's not gonna happen immediately. So, you'll end up you'll end up finding the deal, and then you're just trying to strike that right deal, right? Offers are free. I love Robin
Yep.
says that offers are free, absolutely. And so because offers are free,
Just make sure your agent knows your goal
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
is on board and patient.
yeah. That's it too. There's not a lot of agents out there. Like that's why we like working with investors because we understand what they're looking for, and we're
Hmm.
okay. Usually, I know for us when we work with investors and we're showing houses, I'm actually probably more intrigued than the actual client. I know we showed one yesterday.
We're
And I
excited. Let me see what this
yeah.
is all about.
Yeah, we showed one yesterday, and I was like, it was like what 260, and then everything else in the neighborhood selling for more, and I'm like, why? Like I want to know. And of course, you walk in, and it's like, it's almost like someone hits the horn, like womp womp womp, and you realize there it is. That's your problem.
That's why.
That's right. That's why. Because in the pictures, it didn't show that drainage issue,
Mhm.
but once you show up, you're like, I see it. Yep. Oh, or you walk in and you feel it when you walk
Mhm.
the foundation. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure your agent understands what you're doing because if your agent doesn't understand the investing side, they may be excited to have you as a client, they're gonna be pissed off whenever you're hitting these lowball offers. But I encourage the investor clients that we work with, like, you don't gotta you need to have a cap. I know we saw a property
Mhm.
yesterday. I just told, told our buddy, I was like, I wouldn't buy this. Me personally, it doesn't excite me. It excites me to that he's working to get something because I
Mhm.
know the payoff in the end for him. But that property did not excite me because I knew that the amount of damage that was going to come through, right?
Mhm.
If the water hit and the back of the house and it seeps in and fucks the foundation up and all that. I mean, think about, like, it's not exciting. There's nothing
Yeah.
exciting about that. So, you know, instead of saying, oh, well, where I know some agent might say, who doesn't deal with investors, might say, it's a great house. I'll just, do this and that. And they'll ignore ignore the hell out of the fact that drainage that was put in isn't going to do its job.
Mhm.
We know that personally. I'm like, it needs
And
to
the
be a good
cost
deal.
of rebuilding that, retaining wall.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. The retaining wall was coming down. So you're absolutely right. So what's the goal? Equity or cash flow? We like equity. That makes the most sense, obviously. And then of course, so the the cash flow is important because it does maintain it, right? You do want to make sure that you can maintain the property without having to pay into it if you can. It depends on the deal. We'll kind of get into that here in a bit. Some deals you can do that, but kind of run through the process. So this is what we look at. As far as the way we look at deals. I know I always when we search typically things that are, we're looking for that diamond in the rough that, something doesn't add up, right? It's
Mhm.
like when you search, like go to the Misty. I know she searches every day. She has like on her calendar. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning to 10. She's just like searching at MLS, see what popped up and what's new. So kind of go through your process of searching when you search.
Uh, well, initially, I like to look in the areas where I'd like to own
Hmm.
property and then start with there. And then, of course, if something pops up, looking at the price range to what you're getting, is it multifamily? Is it single family? Is it currently rented out? And what are those rent rates? Is there room for improvement to those rent rates?
So speaking to someone who doesn't have access, like we have access to the
Hmm.
MLS, but someone who doesn't, run through that. Like, how do you this? And I think this is a good lesson for individuals that listen to this, where you're just getting started. And you're trying to figure out, like, will it rent? How much is it going to rent for? Can I make my payment? Because those are all the questions. Nobody, it may not necessarily be how much you're buying it for, as much as, you know, I've got the down payment, but I mean, is it going to work? How do you figure that out if you don't have access to
Well,
MLS?
you should have an agent, but aside from that, yeah, just use Zillow, Realtor, other formats that show pricing, whether you're renting or buying. You should get a general idea of what things are going for, and then if it seems possible that it might be a decent deal, then get that over to your agent, and they can run final numbers for you.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to, bog them down with running the initial numbers. You should have, some due diligence in there yourself of getting it to a point. But if it seems like it might work out, it might be a feasible possibility, then go ahead and, get that to them to get you final numbers.
So you've got principal and interest payments, right?
Hmm.
Which
And
you can
there's loan
usually, yeah,
calculators
you
out
can
there.
usually hit it, like Google has the loan calculator on there. You can hit, put your interest payment, put what your interest payment would be, put the
And
amount, the total amount of the loan, and of course, what your down payment
you can
is.
use the county assessor
Yeah, so
website.
that's usually the next step. After I went and did a quick run of what the um, principal and interest payment would be, right?
Hmm.
And then with how much I'm putting down and what the interest rate is, then I run over to the county website, which whatever it might be. I know for Fort Worth,
Tad.
yeah, we use TAD for Tarrant County. So we run to TAD, we go look up the property and see what the taxes were, and then I divide that by 12. So then I take that, divide it by 12.
And you can
Um,
also see if there's a homestead exemption on there because as an investor, you're not going to have homestead exemption. So
yeah.
that way you can know whether you need to add some money into there because you'll lose that exemption
Mhm.
or if it's already not on there and that's what the taxes are going to stay.
Yep. So I divide all that by 12, right? And then I add that to the principal and interest payment, right? And then after that, I ask my lovely, beautiful accountant who I live with and am married to. What's the insurance of this property, Misty? I do that all the time, actually. I asked Misty because she does handle a lot more on the insurance, but I'd say that jokingly, but ultimately you need to figure out what the insurance would be, and you actually can get those numbers by calling your insurance company if you
Yes.
know that you're getting down to the wire. Like let's just say if you're like, okay, it's what $2,000 a year, rough estimate, and you divide that by 12, throw that into your monthly payment.
Yeah, your insurance is gonna vary based on the property.
Hmm.
So, property age and condition and all kinds of things. So I recommend if it comes down to you needing to know actual numbers and stuff, call either an insurance broker or call whoever you have for insurance already and let them go ahead and just run a bid for it.
Yeah, and then you can divide all that by 12, and then now you've got your numbers of whether or not it's going to work. So um, I don't think you have to call immediately, right? You just your initials are just and then because you compare what your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance are, you compare what that rough
Yeah,
number
have a
is.
placeholder, I
Yeah,
call it.
yeah. You compare that to what you see, again, I'm telling you this, if I say this, if you don't have access to MLS, and you're just kind of running through deals on your own head and you're looking at everything, you can compare that to what is being that payment is to what's being leased currently,
Mhm.
right?
Would
And
it
then,
cover everything?
but also whatever's being leased, pay attention to how many days on market it's set. Because if it's for lease for 2,000 a month and it's been on there for 6 months, then you
It's probably needs to come
probably
down.
needs to come down, right? So it needs to be within reason. So that gives you your fast numbers. And then once you get the fast numbers, then that's what you want to have your agent for. You want to have someone who has access to MLS and can say, hey, this is about what it would rent. This is what it would rent for, quite possibly. I know you and I before we ever had access before we ever had access to the MLS,
Mhm.
we got really good at just being able to make quick assumptions. I know I
Yeah.
got really, really good at making quick assumptions, um, almost to the dollar.
Yeah.
So, but it's not a hard process, right? It's just you're trying to make sure, and then you got to determine. Okay, so once you've ran your initial numbers, you think about what it's gonna cost, or I'm sorry, what it's gonna rent for. So now you got to ask yourself the hard questions. Well, I'm only gonna make $25 a month on this, possibly. Is it worth doing? Right. So then from there, what you look at the neighborhood, you look at the house, the condition. Do I need to fix things
The
up?
history of the area.
History of the area.
Is it continuing to get more expensive living there? Like, are the home prices increasing over the past 10 years?
Right. Yep. Yeah. Is there increase? Is it becoming popular? Right.
Hmm.
Do you know
A
that?
lot of building going on in the area.
Yep. Do you know it's a hot area? Everybody's moving in, and so it's worth go ahead and maybe make $25 a month and just risk it for the biscuit. I mean, that's it. And we say that because we tell a lot of the same stuff to any of our clients, any of our friends that we're helping out, that are getting into this business, that we've gone through deals that were skinny like that, where we're
Hmm.
making $25 a month, and that's after hiring the property management company and letting them do their thing. We walk away with $25. It's not enough to fix the water heater or whatever else at the time, but we also recognize that the area we've purchased in, we're buying for that equity. And so as long as it's pretty much covering its payment on a regular basis,
Hmm.
we were good with it.
Yeah.
And I think it depends on what part or cycle we are in the market, because I don't think it's a bad time to buy in the market. Just whatever cycle you're in. Are you in a position where things are higher right now, higher interest rates, especially when the moment, as we're recording this right now, interest rates are, they're at some of the highest they've been in quite some time,
Hmm.
right? So, and that's not a bad thing. Like, you can always refinance out of
Hmm.
it, but and it shouldn't stop you. But at the same time, you've got to take those things in account. And so, because that percentage, even the drop, it goes back to what we talked about, different episode, that, the mortgage rate, knowing your different mortgage options. Because if you go and you do that, you go run your numbers, and you were at this percent interest rate, and then now you dropped it a half a point, half a percent or another percent. That can make a huge difference in your payment. I mean, it can make a big difference in your cash flow. So I think knowing your initial numbers, what it's going to rent for, and then figuring out, is this going to work for what I'm looking for? Because if it's 25 bucks and you don't want the cash flow,
And
or
if the equity is growing and maybe the property is very slim, like you said, maybe you're making $25 a month or
yeah,
less, or maybe you have to even kick in $50 a month.
yep,
Rents, for the most part, continue to rise over the years, and your
yeah,
equity is still growing. And so, where else can you get a house for $50 a month?
yeah. Yeah, that's Robin's talked about that. I think he went to that on one of the episodes about getting a house for
Hmm.
0% interest. I know Trevor's had that as well, where he's had 0% interest. But Robin talked about that. You get 0% interest, and they kicked in what, $50 a month or something like that. But
Hmm.
it's it was like a, was it 7 or 10 year loan or something of that nature? It was something like that. I don't remember the exact term, that term on it, but he's kicking money in every month, but it's his.
So it's negative cash flow,
Yeah,
but after 5, 7 years, whatever it is,
it's paid
it's
off.
it's going to cash flow the whole amount.
Yeah, it's entirely paid off. So, I think that, and that's why I know when we work with individuals that you just, and I think that's why I get excited about seeing these houses. Like, even though I know I'm not the one purchasing,
Hmm.
at that time, I'm excited because I'm like, ooh, can it work? Can I figure out a way to make this work? Does this thing make sense?
Yeah,
You know?
because rents, like, say I'm Merton, so when we first purchased it, rents were like at 1150 somewhere in there,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're at like close to 2000. So over time, they go up quite a bit. So even if it's a skinny deal, or you might have to contribute just a little bit, if you can make it work, make it work.
Yeah. Well, I remember one year
It'll
we
pay
went
off
through,
later.
yeah, we went through one year where I was like, screw it, Misty. I got down payment money. We have down payment money. We need to put this somewhere. Like I've mentioned before, you feel like the Batman. Too much money. Got to throw it over. Throw the bomb over the rail. So it's burning a hole in my pocket. I've got to put this down payment money somewhere. And we bought a house for. I mean, it was top dollar, right, top of the
Hmm.
market, but the rents matched up.
Hmm.
The rents supported it, and we'd been looking. And the houses we looked at previously, the rents were not supporting everything, but this one, the rents supported it in the area, and the house was full price, fixed up. I think that was probably the one.
Turnkey.
Was that the one? That's one of the one properties we've actually just walked in and just
Stuck a sign in the
stuck a
yard.
sign in the yard and told them to hurry up and rent that thing out, please, please. I think we put a please there too. Um, but yeah, I remember that. But then that property now, it cash flows a lot more, right? Like, kind
Yes.
of give me what's the.
So it cash flows about 500 a month.
Yeah. But in the beginning, it wasn't even 100.
Mm-mm.
I remember like looking at it going, man, it's not even 100.
Very skinny.
Very skinny. So, just holding on to that, right, over time. And we actually haven't had that long. That one we haven't had, I mean, comparatively, we haven't
Yeah.
had it that long. But we were just ready to make it, just put the money somewhere. We had
Yeah.
to put it somewhere. So
Or we'd spend it on stupid
yeah. Yeah.
stuff.
Actually, I'm not going to. I don't know what you're buying. Missy's going to buy crime shows. Apple. No, I'm joking. So it really depends on strategy. I think that if you don't have, I think if now cash flow is helpful in the sense that if you're in a situation where you're much older, you're retiring, because I think time has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Time has a lot to do with it. So I kind of bring this up. I had a conversation with someone just recently where, and if you guys, I'm in my late 30s, right? So, and then this individual is in their mid 30s, and they were talking about, yeah, one day I'd like to invest in some real estate, but right now I got to get my doctor's degree, and it's just taking a lot of time, and I'm like, man, like, I told him, I was like, the one thing you're gonna regret, and you won't say regret, but the one thing you will say that, if you don't do it now, when you get there, you're gonna go, I wish I would have done this sooner, because
Hmm.
time is not on your side the longer you wait. it's actually against you. So the earlier you start, even if it's like equity deal and not a cash flow deal, you know, when you're younger, you can deal with more equity deals and then eventually turn to cash flow. But when you're older, you might need a little more cash flow depending on your strategy. Now, if you're worried, if you're, I know like if you're like if you're older and you're working with kids, working with your kids to build something, then that's maybe different. You're passing it on to them. You're just helping them get moving
Hmm.
along. I can get the equity part on that. But if
Yeah.
you're like, I just want to straight up retire and don't do anything, you need the cash flow.
Time ate your equity.
Yeah. Yeah. Time ate your equity. So now you got to go do cash flow deals, right? So now you got to go look up north and, do the cash flow deal. So yeah, I definitely think time has a lot to do with it because if you don't manage that or do it early enough, you'll make a mistake or you won't get
You'll
started.
limit your options of investment.
And it's not getting any cheaper.
Yeah.
Wood didn't get any cheaper. Labor didn't get any cheaper. Houses didn't get any cheaper.
Cost of living.
Cost of living. The cost of living. It's like the cost of living. The cost of living didn't get any cheaper. None of that got cheaper. So it's always going to go up. Now,
Mhm.
is it going to go up straight? No, it never goes up like immediately. It's up, plateaus, maybe drops a little bit and kind of ticks back up and then, up and down. It just does that little, ups and downs, up hills and valleys and, right, mountains.
Yeah.
I just jujitsu's like that.
Rugged terrain.
Rugged terrain, that's what it is, man. It's mountains. Jujitsu's like that too. I think
Mhm.
anything's like that.
Mhm.
That whole like climb to success. It's never the climb to success is not an escalator. It's literally a climb. You don't just get on the escalator and go
Ride
up.
up.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So and two, I think a lot of it is like single family versus multifamily. Obviously single family is a little bit slower. Multifamily can be a lot faster.
Mhm.
To build up. Multifamily can have better cash flow. It's designed to have that, right? It's one
Yes.
thing, and it's supposed to be a cash
Yeah,
machine,
because if you have vacant units, the other ones are still paying rent. You still have some income coming in
right?
to help offset.
So I think that depends on your strategy. I know that when one thing that you and I did when we first, got started. And again, we're talking about someone who's kind of getting their feet wet. One thing I did was I was nervous. I don't know about you, Misty. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. But I know I was nervous about what if we can't make these payments. So I wanted to do single family. Did you feel
Mhm.
the same way?
Yeah, the easier exit strategy
Right.
kind of built in.
Just in case,
Yeah.
the in case shit happens button, we could just, you know, sell it really quick
Yeah,
versus multifamily. You might the
because
set of buyers
yeah,
is less,
yeah.
so you may not sell it as quickly. Now, I don't fully believe that now. I think, we've just been in the game for quite some time now. So I see some of these multifamilies, they fly off the shelf.
Mhm.
But I
We
think
bought
that,
one on day one on the market.
yeah, yeah, I think they'll fly off the shelf. But I don't, but if you're really, really new and you're nervous and you're like, I don't really know, single family is a different animal. And it also, they're different too, right? The tenants are different.
Yes.
So when you're running through those, the tenant is more of a, they take care of it more versus multifamily. You might get a few more phone calls. You might get a best friend, that calls you regularly just to, you know,
Chit chat.
chit chat. I got shit to do. Don't chit chat with me. So, um, you might have that, but it's a single family is just a quicker exit, I think, in the beginning, and then of course, there's nothing wrong with buying a little negative cash flow if you're doing the right deal. So, you know, I think it's all how you look at the deal, and I think those quick, you know, principal interest, taxes, what's the taxes, and then, what your insurance is. And knowing that, I think if you get good at that, it's easy to spot. Like you can pretty much be on your phone, real estate's crazy, man, because you can just be on your phone and do all of it now.
And if you're buying
Spot it.
multifamily, just be sure to add in other expenses. Like, are you covering the water bill
hmm
or the lawn maintenance or pest control? Other things.
Yeah. On the smaller multifamily, it's not as bad. Like it almost has like a taste of single family because you're not, aside from you might pay for the yard, depends on how you have things set
Yeah.
up. But for the most part, it's pretty. pretty
As
straightforward.
long as
Anything,
they're metered separately.
yeah, 2 to 4 units. But then once you start getting past that, and obviously the more units you have, the more expenses you're going to have.
Yep.
So any other suggestions that you'd want to offer up there, Misty, as far as how you review deals and what you kind of look for and what makes you?
I would suggest, finding some properties on the market and just running numbers on them, even if you're not interested in buying them, just get used to the process.
Yep.
And then you can also follow up with those. And I mean, if you have an agent, you can find out what they sold for,
Hmm.
and then kind of go back and run the numbers. And, maybe you'll see one of the units come up for rent or something. You can see what they're leasing it for.
Yeah.
And just kind of do your own little research project there. And because they do go fast, and good deals go fast, they don't sit.
Yeah.
So that way you are more comfortable with the process, and you get to say, oh, yeah, I would have made a mistake because I didn't take this into account. Or, yes, I, what I'm doing is correct. That was
Right.
a good one. And so next time, be on the lookout for that. And that way you can get quicker at analyzing the deals when they are something that's available and you want to go after it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Your agent needs to be familiar with what
Hmm.
again, your goals. We talked, just talking about that a minute ago, like, because they need to be able to, like, I know for me, what I do with I actually screenshot what was sold and I shoot it over. I'm like, this is what was sold. You can almost see like on the map of everything. Like, here's the sold, here's the active. You can kind of get an idea, without sitting there and going, okay, hold on, man. Let me do a quick CMA, and sit down. And where they're like, this is what's sold. This is just preliminary, because at the end of the day, until we get to that, it's like steps, right? Your first step is you're looking for the house that sticks out. Like, it's underpriced. It's not priced like the
Hmm.
rest of them. You know what I mean? And then once you find that, then you look at it, you look at the pictures. You're like, all right, what's the problem with it? I look for, like, that's what I do. I don't know about you. I ask to myself, what's the problem? Is that what you do?
Yeah. Yeah. And then whether you're handy or not, you need to have realistic pricing of what things would cost, to bring it up. So if you're going to be buying something that needs a little bit of work or something, you need to be able to spitball those numbers pretty quickly, without being way off.
Yeah.
And
Or you just take a Misty with you and you go, honey, how much is it going to cost to get this done? Now, I've gotten really good at it, but in the very beginning, I know, in the very beginning, I like checking, double checking with Misty anyways. It's just, I think that's kind of how we are. We double check even when we know,
Mhm.
but you do want to get comfortable with that and make sure that you understand, because, you're right. It can make a difference. Do you have to put anything into it? So once you find that and you go look at it, and even before you look at it, you can run your preliminary numbers really fast, right?
And then again, have your lending already researched and know which route you're going to go
Hmm.
with that,
Yep.
because that's got to, when you are submitting offers, they're going to want to see pre-approvals and, all that. So you need to have an idea of what you're doing finance wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And then once so you go through, so you find the ugly duckling property, the one that doesn't match. You run your quick numbers on it, right? You go and check and see all the taxes, insurance, principal, interest payments, everything. Check what the rents are. Then you go look at the property, right? Go take a look, see, if those match up, those are like, there's potential there. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. If those match up, then you go look at it. And then once you look at it, then you go, okay, now, I'm got to make an offer if everything, because you can't wait. You said it.
Yeah.
You can't wait, because I see this happen, and I see this happen.
You'll wait for 6 more months because you missed out and you got to wait for something else to pop
Yeah.
up.
And when I say I see this happen, I don't say I see this happen just because individuals we know. I mean, we've experienced it ourselves. We were like, damn, we waited on that. So
And just a word of advice, if you see something and you think it's pretty good and you're not quite there to making a decision, but you know it's going to go quick, you can always make an offer and put that option period in there. Be
yeah,
willing to risk $200 for 5 more days for you to calculate. That's fine.
yeah,
Or whatever,
yeah,
just, I mean, $200 is worth it to not miss out on an opportunity.
yeah. We've done it. We've $100 for $100 for 7 days,
Tie it up.
tie it up. Yeah, that was, and that's actually was my last step. I was gonna say, is that what she just said? That's the last step. Is if it all lines up, and it's not perfect, but it lines up enough, tie the property up for that 5 to 7 days. That gives you enough time to get estimates, get someone out there to look at whatever you need looked at so they can tell you. And then you can either say, yes, we're moving forward, or no. And then in that time, you can also get more in depth on the rents, right? You can get more in
You
depth
usually
on,
spend more than $200 on education.
yeah,
And that's what it is.
dude, people spend that at the
Education.
bar. I mean, if you're, I'm just saying, they go out to eat with that,
Yep.
You go out on a Friday night, spend $200. I'm like, this is $200,
Yep.
$100 to figure out whether or not it works. So yeah, definitely put it under contract, yeah, and all this, and before all this, have your financing set up. But I will say this, and Misty and I've been able, have done this before. Your financing may not be 100% on point. We've
Hmm.
never not closed on something, but for whatever reason, you may start here, and then
Change routes.
yeah, you change routes. So maybe you have, this interest rate. And then while you're going through this, you're still searching to see if there's someone else that has a
Better,
better deal, so
better
don't sit.
product.
If you sit and wait as you're reviewing deals just to be like, everything has to line up, it's all got to be perfect, it'll never work. You won't do anything because you're like, well, my financing
You
isn't
got to
ready.
feel that fire.
Hey, there's no better fire than, right? It's just like the fire on your ass. There's no better fire than when you're under contract and you're like, I got 7 days, you know, or I'm going to lose $100 because I didn't do what I was supposed. I'm okay to lose $100 or $200 because it just didn't work out, but not because I didn't do the shit I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right? If I was doing what I was supposed to do, then great. But if it was just, you know, just being lazy, that's up there with late fees, man. It's just donations.
But building a team is very important,
Yeah.
and it helps speed the process up a lot faster. So
Hmm.
if you just spend some time while you don't have a deal in front of you and do research, and it's a ongoing thing. New products, new services, new people,
Right.
come out all the time. So don't just say this is the only route I go and I'm sticking with it. So it's a ever evolving thing, but you should start building a team of people you reach out to. So brokers and things like that.
Hmm.
So along the way, as you get comfortable with these brokers and they know what you're looking for, and so insurance brokers, mortgage brokers, whatever, um, they're always on top of the new products and stuff that they offer.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to make 10 million calls every time you're going to buy a property. You reach out to maybe a set of these three people, and these three will go to work for me, find out what I need, and get back to me quickly.
Mm.
And same with inspections or whatever, construction people, to help go on a tour of the house with you and let you know it's going to be 50,000 to fix this house up or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you start building your team, but don't stop educating or learning about new stuff along the way.
When I used to hear the words "build your team," I was like, well, where the hell do I find these people? All right, here's how you find them. You just screw it up, man. You got it. You don't find them because you just. Well, let me just sit down here and let's go ahead and write out a team. I'm gonna hire this person. I'm gonna bring. No, dude. To build a team, you just start out by, all right. Start looking at houses. You got your financing lined up. Look at houses, and then you start going, okay, I need to call someone for this. I need to call someone for that. If they do a good job, you keep them on the list. If they do a
Yep.
horrible job, never hire them again. Go to the next person. Right? That's
Yep.
that's how you build them. Like you don't, because I know we've had that before. Where like
I have a spreadsheet,
we have a spreadsheet.
people that do different stuff, and
Yeah.
I have multiples. So in the words of Cindy Carragher, have backups to your backups.
There you go. That's right. Backups. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you have to have that because otherwise, you're gonna. But I know for us, building a group of individuals we work with, a team of people we work with, it didn't start because we just sat down and like, let's write a team out, Misty. Like it was,
Mhm.
you realized who was doing a great job and you stuck with them, and the ones
Yep.
that didn't, they got booted, and they didn't get like a letter of boot. Like
Who's
they just,
honest, who does a good
yeah.
job, and who's reliable.
Hmm.
And you call them and they'll show up,
Yeah. Yep.
get the
Absolutely.
job done.
Yeah, and it doesn't, and that's, you just stick to them. You stick with those people. So, Yeah, that's pretty much how we review a deal. I know, like, I get sent a deal over, I have someone send me a deal and say, "Hey, does this work?" And it's real fast. I mean, like, everything we just talked about for, X amount of minutes actually is done really, really quick. I mean, it's fast. It doesn't take long. I'll shoot it right back. Boom. I think it's too much, or I think it's this, or I think it's that. So, but then also, like she said, whoever you're working with needs to understand what your goals are. Because if it's not equity and it's just cash flow, you don't want to send that deal over to someone who is, well, that's not a good deal because it's not
Mhm.
cash flowing. Well, hold on now. I mean, what do you want? So absolutely. So, well, I hope that helps as far as reviewing a deal for you guys. If you're learning how to review deals, just get out there, review deals. Uh, have a good agent that is going to help you. It doesn't have to. I'm not saying you gotta have us. I'm just saying that you just need wherever you're at, whoever you're listening to, whatever place in the world. I know we have people all the way to Guam that listen to us. So across the world. So wherever you're at, have someone who knows what your goals are, as far as if you're using an agent to find all the information out. I know that I shoot back like solds to any clients. I'm not holding that back. I mean, they need to know this is a good deal or not. Have someone that can help with that. And then, like Misty said, build the team, the backups, and and just know what your goals are, equity or cash flow. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some knowledge, and we will catch you guys next time.